Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload is going to be a video about why this upcoming pattern, or just really the pattern that has been going on and will continue to be happening, foreshadows a very interesting feature about winter. Now, if you recall, I did similar videos last year about this, and they proved to be not right. I was right, and I'm not afraid to admit to that. So you may be wondering, why am I doing it this year? Well, this year, again, I will be not factoring this into my winter forecast. And if the evidence is overwhelming as we go further on, then I will maybe do a slight factor in. But to be honest with you, last year I did way too much of this factor into our winter forecast. And the evidence that I'm going to show you, in my opinion, is pretty remarkable. And you'll see for yourself why I think it all connects, holds together, and really is pretty remarkable evidence showing some signs of a interesting cold winter possibly. So if you guys would like to subscribe to this channel, consider doing so. If you guys like the video, if you're a returning viewer, that'd be awesome as well. So thank you so much for doing that. It really keeps the channel on top. So if you're looking at the subscribe button right now and you're not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. And if you're not, it's perfectly fine. Watch the video and see for yourself. So let's look at the GFS model. You may be wondering, why am I starting off with the GFS model? I want to show you the pattern that I'm talking about. What is the pattern that I'm, talking about? Well, what's going to be going on? And basically, what I'm talking about is the ridiculous heat that is going on across the country. If you live practically anywhere, it's been pretty hot. Maybe parts of the northwest and west have been a bit chillier. Don't worry, it's going to get hotter pretty quick. So you're not going to get away with that. But notice we push into Friday, Saturday. This is not a forecast video. This is just showing you how damn hot it's going to get. I'm sorry, but there's really no other word to use. You can see 109, 108, 102. That's still nothing compared to what's going to come, and especially across the southeast. If you think it's hot across the southeast, I have some bad news for you. It's going to get much hotter. Notice across the southwest, unbearable heat. 117 reaching 120 widespread. Notice the heat starts building across the plains. If it's anywhere cooler, it's across the Great Lakes. But don't worry, they're going to get their fair share as well. Look at this now. Look at that. 115, 112. I mean, 120 across the plains is remarkable hot. And there are already some heat advisories, heat warnings. Look at the south. Hundreds widespread all the way into southern Indiana, Ohio, up into DC, New York City, probably seeing hundreds, as well as much of the northeast. You could see Kansas, Oklahoma, just widespread hundreds. Very, just look at that. I mean, this whole region right here is almost all plus 95 degrees. And then a bit cooler towards the north, but still very hot towards the Great Lakes and warm in the west as well. If we pushing this forward, just look at that. Parts of Virginia seeing plus 100 degrees, 110 degrees in some areas. And this doesn't fade away. This continues and keeps going and keeps stretching further and further north. You could see parts of Minnesota, parts of North Dakota seeing up in the hundreds easily. And this continues for a while and doesn't seem like it will be breaking anytime soon. Just look at the south. Some areas reaching definitely into the 100-degree range. And the GFS has been kind of underestimating some of these temperatures. So, it's kind of, this is unfortunately the lower end of the spectrum, what may occur, which is definitely something you don't want to see. Now, if you were to look at the temperature anomalies, it may be deceiving because it looks as if there's more blue than cold or not as much orange. Let me tell you, the blue is much more visible than the orange. Look at this right here. That's not the thing that first pops to your head right here, that little color. First you see these colors, that color. That right there, which you could barely see, that orange shading, is about as the same deviation from average as this is across Texas. And notice this blue is much more visible than that orange. It's because it's skewed. I mean, it's just, the light orange is, I guess, less visible than the light blue on a white map. So notice this is good. This is mainly above average map. And you can see that across certain areas it gets very hot. And that's, it kind of rotates the heat. Thankfully, it goes from place to place. But generally, a good portion of the United States will be seeing it at some point, sooner or later. Now, there are a few maybe colder shots of air towards the north. That's really going to be insignificant. It's not going to do much. Notice this. This is a thunderstorm outflow. That's not associated with a pattern change. Notice that if we see any cool weather, it might be across this weekend. You can see Sunday, Monday, some cooler temperatures across the Great Lakes. But overall, just widespread heat next week. And mid to late next week could be just absolutely cruel. So this is definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on for, just because of the pure danger. But aside from that, I just wanted to prove it to you that it's going to be hot. And many of the forecast models are, the ensembles are also showing heat. It's uniform. So you may be wondering, what on earth made this foreshadow about winter? So this is where we get into the fun part. Okay, so let's start digesting the information that I've gathered, and let's see what we could decipher out of this. Notice this is a screen title, what the upcoming pattern foreshadows about winter 2021. So we have, this is the Weather Channel forecast for the summer. You can see much above average, if just above average for the whole United States. You may be thinking, oh, that's just the Weather Channel. No, it's AccuWeather as well. They have a little bit more cooler right here, but that is really, that is optimistic, if you will. I think it will be very hot across those locations. Notice, northeast turning very warm, muggy, that's indicating warm and humid, hot, dry, and warmth as well. So most of the United States is pretty warm, again, with AccuWeather. And I could keep showing you a bunch of forecasts, and it would all be the same story. I don't want to waste your time. Let's look at some of the scientific data. Probabilistic ENSO outlook. ENSO neutral is most likely to continue through the Northern Hemisphere summer 2020. That's what they're saying. However, it's been unexpectedly cooling off more rapidly. So I would not be surprised if by August, September, we start getting into a La Nina pattern. Now, if if it doesn't, it doesn't debunk the data here. The data is still that I used is basically from years that have had neutral ENSOs that went into a La Nina year that were hot summers. So aside from that, let's just continue looking at the ENSO. So and La Nina is most likely to form for the winter, and this is where the data could be flawed if the La Nina doesn't form, because what I'm assuming in this video is that it will be a neutral up until around early fall and turn into a La Nina. That's most of the speculations that forecasters are giving. Notice that these are the models. You could see this one is really indecisive. Here's a La Nina line. You could see half of them are below, half of them are above. So it'd either be a very weak La Nina or a neutral. And you can see some are extreme, almost getting into El Nino, and some are almost getting into record-breaking territory of La Nina. We look at the averages rather than the extremes, but it still looks as if generally it will be a La Nina out of these models. Now, these models are the CFS, and you can see the CFS ensembles, and you can see that it's indicating really the average, which is that dotted line. You can see a forecast ensemble mean is dipping way into La Nina territory by December, January, and February, and then dipping back out gradually by springtime. But for the winter months, it is a La Nina, right? And it was a neutral for the summer, and it seems like it will maintain its neutralness, if you will, up until August into September. These are the ocean departures for the, or the predictions for the ocean temperatures. You can see La Nina looks pretty dominant based on this CFS models. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze there. Apologize. So notice we are looking at ENSO years now, and because you may be wondering where I got my statistical data from and where I took the previous years. This is just a little piece of what I used. You can see that this dates back all the way to 1950 if you click on this link. And I can't click on this link because this is a screenshot, but notice that this is giving you out the month-by-month departures of either below or above average of the ENSO territory. And you can see that I have, the first year I think I used was 2005, so it's not even on here. But basically what I did is I looked at the May, January, June, August, this time frame, the summer time frame, and saw whether it was saw what ENSO was. If it was a neutral, I considered that year. And then if it transitioned into a moderate La Nina, not too strong, but a moderate to weak La Nina, then I took that year and put it in a composite. And I took a bunch of those years into a composite without knowing what the summer is like, just to experiment and see, if there is going to be a correlation between all those years. So with the neutral summer and a La Nina winter, and with the neutral summer possibly being hot like this year's, what would the impacts be? So I took all those years and I put it all into a composite, all the neutral years that transitioned into the La Nina winter, and just decided to do it for the fun of it, and ended up finding something remarkable. Look at this. This is what all the neutral years that led into a potential La Nina ended up being like. The summer time frame. Look at the July. This is just July, but I did a composite for all the summer months, and it was equally as warm. So it was maybe a bit more widespread and a bit less concentrated in some areas, but it was also warm. And notice, all these years, the July was just remarkably hot. And if you think about it, this is better than I'm just using 1 month, because we theoretically don't know what's going to happen for August or September. It may cool off, but it most likely will stay warm like it did in these years. But if that were not to happen, I decided to minimize the potential error, and I just used the July, which we are confident is just going to be a scorcher. Notice, warmth. Much of the United States, a bit cooler across the west, which is where it has been cooler. If you recall, in the northwest, a couple days ago, maybe it was a week, it snowed across some passes in Idaho, 4,000 feet above sea level, or 4,000 feet in elevation. So this holds pretty darn well to this year's scenario. Now, I looked at this and I'm like, okay, it's similar to our year 2020, the July. So if the La Nina does form 2021, the winter following 2020, what would the impacts be? What were the historical impacts of years like this? Of similar years? And I found something remarkable. Look at that. November to March of those same years, or that following winter of that July, much below average temperatures across the northwest, into the midwest, and into parts of the northeast, and warmer across the south and the northeast. Now, if you live across the northeast and you look at this, don't be discouraged. This doesn't mean you won't get snow. Snowstorms do occur in winters where it's above average, and sometimes it can be even bigger due to warmer air controlling more moisture, especially if there's cold air just to the north of it. So this is pretty remarkable, and I do think that something like this may happen, especially since this is a characteristic La Nina pattern. I mean, starts from the northwest the most, and it kind of fades into the south, into the eastern U.S. And along this pattern, there would be many storms, many clippers, many outbreaks, cold, consistent, sustained air. So this is some very exciting news. Again, this is not a end-all be-all. This is what I'm basing my forecast off of. Not at all. This is just a little piece that I may use, as my forecast is much more than just 1 or 2 pieces. It's just to clear things up. And then I took it one step further, because I said, why the heck not? And I looked at springs that were previous to this heat, which, if you recall, our spring this year was chilly. So I looked at all these years and looked at their spring. Look at that. It was chilly as well. Now, it was chillier to a greater extent, the April to May time frame. It was more cold across a general area of the United States. But for this year, April and May, it was still generally more chilly than warm across the United States. And that's, again, further just everything's lining up, piece by piece, dot by dot, everything is connecting. And then I just look at the precipitation amounts throughout the winter months of that colder air, which you saw right here. Just look at the precipitation. You could see northeast was above average, as northwest, and parts of the Midwest. So this would mean possibly more above average snow, and just generally quite a bit of, snow across the United States. And maybe excluding the South, where it's drier. But really, that is, that's just one region, and that could still see some snow even if it's below average in precip. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully this all made sense to you, because it makes perfect sense to me. Sometimes though, it's hard to explain things the way you see them in your mind, but hopefully you all enjoyed. Hopefully you learned something new, and I will catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.